So last week was Forward cloudsec Europe. It's the first time that this conference happened outside of the US. I want to spend a few minutes showing the different talks that happened there, and we will link to the slides and to the videos in the description. There were more than 110 submissions that led to 11 talks, so the selection process was quite hard, and we had over 200 attendees for that first European edition. First up, we had Rami McCarthy, who talked to us about some great advice on how to start and scale a cloud security program, especially when you are a small team with limited resources. So he talked about trying to focus on high signals and low noise tools, but having some great insight is better than having perfect coverage, about guardrails and paved roads. Great talk. Up next, we had Sebastian Waller, who explained different attacker tactics that they saw during actual incident response in the cloud. I think for me, the key takeaway from that talk is that attackers use cloud native ways of running commands into VMs much more than I would have thought. Things like SSM Sessions Manager or the Azure Run Command VM, for instance. Next, we had Katie Knowles. She's one of my colleagues at Datadog, and she talked to us about how to use a feature in Entra ID called administrative units to basically persist in a way that makes it very confusing for even a global administrator to respond. So that's a great research too. Next, we had Kat Trexler, who talked to us about a vulnerability that she found in Google Cloud. Specifically, it's a way that even if you don't have GCS permissions, you can trick an internal service into doing some actions for you. So in that case, it's using document AI, and you can trick the inner workings of that service to perform some actions in GCS buckets, even if you don't have the permissions for it. Up next, we had Ryan Nolet from AWS Security, and he talked to us about how the internal AWS vulnerability disclosure process works. It was some interesting presentation. And they announced the fact that they now have the vulnerability disclosure program on HackerOne, which should make it a better experience for everyone as opposed to being email-based. Next talk was from Christian Filipov, and he talked about how an attacker that compromised an initial Azure user can then enumerate the tenant to find Azure AD users, applications, things like that, group memberships, but in a way that doesn't get logged. And he does that by using internal APIs that are not documented and that are only supposed to be used by the Azure portal. That was a great talk and very actionable for red teamers too. Next, we had Shay Berkovich, who explained some of the gotchas that exist when using Kubernetes audit logs, specifically in a cloud context, where you are going to use managed Kubernetes much more, and it's very hard to have a common data model between the different cloud providers for that. And we had a very interesting talk again from Shelly Raban, and she explained us how different policy as code tools such as OPA actually allow you to execute malicious code as well, which I don't think many people know. So if you are able as an attacker to compromise or to backdoor some policies such as Rego ones, you are also typically able to run arbitrary code or to exfiltrate environment variables. Next, we had another of my colleague, Nick Frichette, who talked to us about how the methodology that he used for finding undocumented AWS APIs. And he released a new open source tool on to help with the automation of that too. Then we had Attila and Marcus, who are from Spotify, and they explained a bit how the multi-cloud identity federation works at Spotify, some of the challenges that they faced when they tried to implement that in their platform, and some of the implications for incident response, because when you have two different clouds, obviously this has some implications when you need to respond to incidents and to threats. And finally, we had Chris Norman, who is the co-founder of Common Fate, who had a very interesting talk on how to build your own CloudTrail, but more for applications running in the cloud. So these are things like how do you do audit logs for a SaaS product that runs into AWS, and how do you correlate some application level events with some CloudTrail level ones. So hopefully you were able to either attend the conference, either watch the live stream. If not, we will post the link to the videos in the description. So hopefully you liked the talks, and thanks for watching.